Hello, everybody. I hope all of y'all are having a good day today. Most of you guys know my testimony. Some of you may not. But in the year 2008, it was April 3rd, 2008, I had surgery, neck surgery. And during that surgery, I had a stroke and affected the left side of my body. And I was totally paralyzed in my arm, my leg. I had a feeding tube for about 3 years. I'm actually still supposed to have a feeding tube. Half of my throat and half of my tongue is still totally paralyzed. And I have trouble swallowing food without getting choked. But I told them I wanted that thing taken out of my body. They told me I would be dead within 6 months from aspiration pneumonia, and that was 11, 12 years ago, so it shows you how much they know. Anyway, during this time after I had the stroke, I went through lots and lots of rehabilitation and was just lots of different things. And I was on, everybody's been hearing the story about that heavy duty painkiller, those patches. And I can't even remember the name of it now, but I'll post it right here. But I was on those things. I was on morphine. I was on codeine, muscle relaxers, all different types of antidepressants and anti-seizure medicines and stuff. It was insane, and I was just. You can imagine someone with that much drugs in them, and on top of that, I was abusing the drugs. And after a couple of years, they told me, they said, you've gotten as good as you're going to get. You're not going to get any better. And I still hadn't regained much in my arm or my leg. I could use them, but it wasn't that much. And it was just, I was very depressed. And the more depressed I got, the more I took pills. And finally, I just decided, that's it, I'm going to end it all. And I took a whole bottle of Xanax. Now, my plan was I was just going to go to sleep. I'm not going to go into great detail about what I experienced, but what I do know is that I died. When they found me, they drugged me out to a car, took me to a doctor's office. They said he's breathing, and the nurse ran out to the car and said he's not breathing. That's called a death rattle. It was just air exiting my lungs. They didn't listen to that nurse. They just took me to the emergency room, and in the emergency room, they hooked me onto life support. Then they put me in a helicopter and flew me to San Antonio. I was on life support, and then they told my family I had no brain function, that I would never recover, and that it would be best just to disconnect me. And so they pulled the plug. And by the grace of God, my heart kept beating and I kept breathing. But what those folks didn't know is that I was having a major battle in that coma, and they didn't know it. And so I want to share a little bit of what I encountered while I was in this coma. I was in a coma for 21 days. I will tell you this, it is after I took all these pills, I don't remember anything else except the next thing I know, I am inside one of those old-timey type movie theaters. If you're the age of 50 or so, you probably remember those. It was before they had these big fancy cinemas. It was just the old movie theaters with the balconies, and they had the old movie posters and stuff. They were really cool. I was inside this theater. There was no one in there except for me, and all the seats were empty, and there was the screen down below in front, and it was just lit up, and that was it. And I went and I found me the most perfect seat. It was right in the middle of the whole thing, and I sat down, and whenever I sat down, I realized it had really nice chairs that you could kick back and recline in and put your feet up on and lay your head back. Soon as I kicked it back and my feet went up and my head touched the back, it was like millions of these just microscopic fiber optic links just like morphed into my head. It was like a Matrix Revolution moment, and I went down this tunnel into that screen. It was like I'm getting shown my life. And I seen myself as I'm going down this tunnel in many situations, in many different times, places, and making the same mistakes over and over and over. One thing, I saw myself in a parking lot in a liquor store, getting the snot beaten out of me, you know, and then I see myself in another time, farther in the past, and it's like I went through this review of things, and then boom, I come to the end of this tunnel, and at the end of the tunnel was this blackness that was like it was alive. It was like you could touch it and it would stick to you. It was like this shimmering blackness, is a blackness that I've never, you can't really give it words. It just kind of shimmered, but it was black. And I remember there was these little people, and I was like in this hallway, and there was doors all down the sides of this hallway, and there was a door at the very end. And I remember I was wondering what was in those doors, but these little people were just pulling me. They were pulling me to this end door, the last door. And whenever I opened up that door, that's whenever I saw what I call the dark man. And when I saw the dark man, I knew we were gonna fight. He was just a shadow of a person. He was really huge, he was big, he was my Goliath, okay? And we fought, and we fought. Every time I would fight him and knock him down, he would get back up. And I couldn't use the same move twice. I always had to come up with a different move every time, and I would knock him down. I got to my very last move. I was thinking to myself, if he gets up after this one, I'm done for. And I just knew in my spirit that if he got me, if he ever got me, that was it. He would have my soul. Because by this time I'd realized that I was in a coma, and I knew that I needed to win this fight if I was going to wake up. The very last time I fought him, I got him down, and that's when I seen his eyes. It's like he opened up his eyes and he spoke to me. And he said, "You got me this time." He said, "But I'm not finished with you yet." And that's when it started getting light, and I started waking up. I could come out of the coma. I was hearing alarms outside, ambulance sirens and things like that. And I woke from the coma, and that's when I found out I'd been in a coma for 21 days. To me, it seemed like a lifetime. Time is different and that stuff. In the time that I was fighting for my life, all of that I experienced could have been a half a millisecond, or it could have been the entire time I was in the coma. I have no idea, because time is funky, and time is just not what most people think it is. That was in the year 2010, and it was 2 more years before I come to know God. June 14th of 2012, when I experienced God, and He filled this void within me that I'd had my whole life. You know, from the time I was probably 4 or 5 years old, I felt this emptiness inside me, and I just knew that something wasn't right within me, and I started trying to fill that emptiness with drugs and alcohol. You most of y'all know, sex, drugs, rock and roll, whatever feels good, I tried to do it to fill that emptiness. After I come to know God, I made my testimonial video off of my carnal idea of what I thought I experienced, because see, I thought I'd went to hell. I thought that I was in hell for 21 days. And what I come to know, what God has revealed to me, is that it wasn't that. It was something totally different from that. That darkness that I experienced while I was in the coma, that I seen, was the darkness that everybody is in without the light of Christ within them. Okay, and that emptiness that I felt all that time was that absence of the light. It was not on, it was not awake. All right, and I remember thinking for the longest time, you know, I would cry about friends and family that I knew that had already passed on, and I was worried about their soul, thinking they were going to be in some kind of horrible place like that. And that's when God finally revealed to me, and He showed me one night in a dream. He said, what you experienced was not was not hell. I was showing you your reality of what you were going through. See, that dark man that you were fighting, he told me, was myself. It was the darkness within me. And I couldn't beat him alone. All right, every time I would try to beat him, he would get back up. He kept getting back up, and it wasn't until Christ came into me, June 14th, 2012, that he was put down for good. That was it. And I remember when I was reading in Genesis about Jacob wrestling with God, and it touched me so deep. I've got goosebumps now just thinking about it. And I realized then, and God showed me later, that that was me. I was wrestling. Remember, Jacob wrestled with God and man. And I was wrestling with God and man my whole life. That darkness in me, that you see when it says that Jacob was wrestling with God and man, that word for man that they use there means a sick man. Somebody who needs to be healed. Salvation, that's what the word salvation means. And the only way to be healed is to be rejoined with the light, with Christ. All right, and so I realized I was wrestling with God and man, and I remember after God showed that to me, I felt so much more at ease about those friends and family of mine that had passed on, and later he showed me more and more about what this world is and about our fires that we have to go through, the purification fires. So one day I was reading in the book of Revelation about the 144,000, and I noticed that the order of the names of the 12 tribes of Israel were different from what they were in the Old Testament. And I realized right then that God revealed to me that there was a story in that. And at the time I thought, well, this is God just showed me. But once I started researching it, I realized there was 2 other people that God had revealed it to as well. But what I want to do is each one of the names of the tribes of Israel, in the order that it comes, each name has a meaning to the name. And whenever you put them all together, it tells a story. And so I'm gonna read to you that story, what it says. And I'll put it up here so you can read along with it as well. But it's pretty amazing. I will praise Yahweh. Surely Yahweh has looked upon my affliction. What good fortune, happy am I. With great wrestling I have wrestled, and I have prevailed. For Elohim has made me forget of my toil, because Yahweh has heard that I was hated. Now this time will my husband be joined with me. Elohim has given me my wages. Elohim has endowed me with a good gift. Now my husband will dwell with me. Yahweh shall add to me. You shall have this son. For 2 years after I come out of that coma, I continued to wrestle with God. And it wasn't until June 14th of 2012 that my wrestling come to an end. And I gained that peace that surpasses all understanding. I pray that this piece of my testimony has blessed you. I hope that has enlightened you, and I hope it may have answered some of the questions that some of you may have had about your past and some of the things that you've had to deal with, because most of us have similar stories. I love you all. God bless.